All right, let's dive right in. Welcome to our study guide on home care nursing. Now, whether you're a student getting ready for your clinicals, a seasoned nurse thinking about a change, or you're just curious, we're going to break down everything you need to know about this amazing field. We'll cover the core ideas, the skills you absolutely need, and what it's really like to bring healthcare right to a patient's doorstep. So, let's get into it. Just think about that for a second. We're so used to thinking that healing happens in these, sterile clinical places. But what if the best, most powerful environment for recovery is a place you already know and love? That's the huge idea we're unpacking today.
You see, the whole philosophy behind home care is actually pretty simple, but it's also really profound. The idea is that patients just do better when they're getting top-notch, safe care in a familiar place, surrounded by their own things, their family, their support system. It cuts down on anxiety, it boosts their well-being, and, as we're about to see, it genuinely leads to better health outcomes.
Okay, so here's our game plan for this study session. First, we're going to lay the groundwork, what home care actually is. Then, we'll get into the proof, the reasons why it's so incredibly effective. After that, we'll talk about the nurse's toolkit, the skills you'll need. We'll look at the team aspect, and finally, we'll wrap up with a look at what the future holds for this field. First things first, let's get on the same page. What exactly is home care nursing? And, where did this whole idea even come from? So the key thing to get here is that home care is way more than just making house calls. It's a specialty that literally meets patients where they are. And that could be at home, sure, but it could also be at school or at their job. We're talking about patients with really complex, acute needs getting treatments that used to only happen in a hospital, now delivered right there in the community. It's a huge shift.
And this practice has been around for a long, long time. For most of history, care was home care. Hospitals really only became the default in the late 1800s. But even then, groups like the Victorian Order of Nurses kept the visiting nurse tradition going. The real game changer, at least in Ontario, was in the 1970s, when it started to get publicly funded. And that's what's evolved into the complex system we have today.
Okay, so now for the why. Why does this model work so well? Let's dig into the evidence and see what the real-world impact is for patients, for the healthcare system as a whole, and for the nurses themselves.
This first number is, honestly, a game changer. A 30% drop in hospital readmissions. Think about what that really means. It means chronic conditions are being managed better, crises are being prevented, and people are staying healthier and more comfortable right where they want to be. It's huge. And you can bet patients feel that difference. Over 82% say they're satisfied with the care they get at home, and when you pair that with another stat, that 93% of seniors in Ontario would much rather stay home than go into long-term care, you see this perfect match between what people desperately want and what home care provides. And then, of course, there's the money. You just can't argue with these numbers. The daily cost of care at home averages around $103. Compare that to $182 in a long-term care facility. It's just a smarter, more efficient way to use our healthcare dollars, which means the system can help more people.
So it's great for patients and it's great for the system, but what's in it for the nurses?
Well, it turns out a lot. Home care offers a really unique career path. You often get more flexible scheduling, a ton of independence and autonomy, and you actually have the time to build real, meaningful relationships with your patients. That kind of one-on-one focus also opens up all sorts of doors to specialize in things like wound care, pediatrics, or even dialysis.
Okay, so if you're thinking this sounds pretty good, you're probably wondering, what skills do I actually need? What goes into the toolkit of a successful home care nurse? Well, it's a mix of your clinical skills and some really important personal qualities.
So at the very heart of the practice, you've got this framework. It outlines 79 evidence-based competencies. Now, that sounds like a lot, but just think of them as the official playbook for providing safe, ethical, high-quality care. For example, one competency is all about assessing a patient's home for safety risks. Another might be about teaching a family member how to manage a new medication schedule. It covers the whole spectrum.
And those 79 competencies, they don't just appear out of thin air. They're built on this solid foundation of the 8 standards of practice for community health nursing. These are like your guiding principles. So, advocating for clients might mean you're helping a patient find community resources. Ensuring health equity means you're actively working to break down barriers to care. It's all about building trust and using solid evidence to guide your practice.
But, it's not all just about what's on paper. There are certain personal traits you've just got to have. You have to be super adaptable, right? Because you're not in a controlled hospital setting. You have to be a great problem solver.
You need to be comfortable working on your own, but also be a fantastic team player. And communication and leadership skills, absolutely non-negotiable when you are a guest in someone's most personal space.
And that whole idea of teamwork, it's crucial. This brings us to our next big point. Even though a home care nurse is often working alone during a patient visit, they are always part of a bigger collaborative team. It's never a solo act.
And just look at how all the pieces fit together. It's like a well-oiled machine. You have physicians and nurse practitioners making diagnoses and ordering treatments. The registered nurse is often the coordinator, doing that big picture assessment and creating the care plan. And the registered practical nurses are on the ground, providing that vital daily care and monitoring. Everyone has a distinct, critical role. Okay, now for 3 key terms you absolutely need in your vocabulary, especially if you're working with unregulated care providers, or UCPs. First up is assigning. This is simply the act of figuring out and giving responsibility for a specific part of care to someone else. It's all about allocating the work.
Okay, so once a task is assigned, the next step is supervising. This is where you monitor and direct the activities that person is doing. And it doesn't always mean you're standing right there watching them. It can be direct, where you are physically present, or it can be indirect, which is more like having regular check-ins and getting updates.
And finally, we get to delegating. Now, this one is the big one. This is the most formal of the 3, and it carries some serious legal weight. It's when a regulated professional, like an RN, formally gives their legal authority to perform what's known as a controlled act to somebody else, but only if that person is competent to do it safely. It's a massive responsibility.
All right, let's move into our final section. As amazing as home care is, it's not all sunshine and roses. We need to be real about the significant challenges facing the field, but also get excited about the incredible opportunities that are just on the horizon.
And the reality on the ground can be really demanding. The acuity of patients, basically how sick they are, has shot up 95% in just 5 years. That's almost double. Yet the pay can be as much as 24% lower than in a hospital, which, leads to staffing issues. Plus, nurses have to deal with limited resources in the home and navigate some really tricky safety situations, from the physical environment to complicated family dynamics. But on the flip side of those challenges, there's this incredible wave of innovation. Technology is totally changing the game. Things like telehealth for virtual appointments, remote monitoring tools, and wearable devices like a digital blood pressure cuff or a fall detector let the care team keep a close eye on patients from a distance. It's making care more proactive than ever before. So we'll end our study session with this big question for you to think about. Every single sign is pointing to healthcare moving more and more out of hospitals and into the community. Patients want it, the data proves it works, and technology is making it possible. So the real question is, how are we going to support and empower the home care nurse? Because their role is truly on track to become the central pillar of our entire health system. I hope this was a helpful guide. Thanks for joining me.